On today's resource review, we're looking at resources to teach electricity at primary level. So will sparks fly when our panel examine the following 3 resources? A comprehensive kit of electrical components, a drama workshop on electricity, and a website of circuit activities. Recommending today's resources, we have Julia Tebanya, who is the primary consultant for the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. And on the panel today, we're joined by Keith Fox, head teacher of St John's Woolworth Primary School in the London Borough of Southwark. And we have former teacher Dave Smith, who is the ICT consultant and curriculum advisor for the Havering Inspection and Advisory Service. And of course, our regular resource investigator, Dynamo, Matthew Tosh, is out and about, seeing what pupils and teachers make of the resources. Julia, let's talk about your first resource, and it is the Understanding Electricity class set. What is it about this set that you like?
I think one of the main reasons that I like it is it solves a lot of the manipulation problems that pupils have in physically making circuits. So you can get to the point of the learning, which is about why you're making the circuits. And it is the best one that I've seen in testing a number of different things on the market. It makes a really simple connection, and you're not reliant on pupils being able to fiddle around with crocodile clips that they frequently find really difficult to do.
OK, so who do you think this is specifically aimed at? Is it across the whole of primary?
Yes, we road tested them in a Year 2 class, but because they also include things like resistance components and a range of different switches, they do allow you to use the kit right the way through. So it is a good investment, because even your Year 6s can find challenge in making circuits from this.
Well, thanks very much for all of that. Now let's go over to Goldstones Primary School in Hove, East Sussex, where Matthew Tosh is seeing the resource in action.
The Understanding Electricity class set comes in a box with all of the components in, and all of the components are mounted on a bit of perspex like this, and they've got connectors at either end. Now there are light bulbs, motors, batteries and various switches that the children can work with. Now each of the components are mounted on this perspex, and it matches the diagrams that you get on the class set of instructions, so that children can follow the diagrams and build the circuits as they're represented in the pictures. Well, in a moment, Caroline Stevenson is going to come in with her Year 2 group, so let's see what they make of the Understanding Electricity class set.
OK, right, if we look at our card, who can tell me what we're going to be learning about today? Ruben? Electricity. Electricity, excellent. OK, so if we
Caroline, can you talk me through how you've been using the class sets today?
Yep, well, today we've done it in groups. We're looking at card 3, which was talking about what happens if we change things in our circuit, how that affects the bulb, and looking at what makes the circuit really work the best. It's still not lit up. Oh, why is it still not lit up? Summer?
It's because we need to connect the 2 wires to each end.
And what I like about the set is the fact that it's uniform, everything's the same. So the wires are all the same, the light bulb bases and the motor bases, you can see the wire threads going through, so they're really able to follow the path of the electricity. Our wire, our bulb. Downsides to the set, I'd say, is that the connections aren't always particularly strong. So if the children move the circuit around, then it comes unpinned sometimes, and the battery holders are quite tight. They really struggle to get the batteries in and out of the battery holders. Well done. Give yourselves a big clap.
And so your overall impressions of the product?
Really positive. I think it's got some real things going for it. The fact it's all in one box, it's uniform, there's enough equipment for nearly a whole class to be doing the same thing at the same time. I do feel there are things that could be improved on it.
Thank you very much, Caroline. So there could be some improvements, but what do our panel think? It's back to the studio.
Keith, what do you make of this resource?
It is a lovely resource, and there is this whole issue of the way that it connects together, which does make it very simple to use, and you can see it be accessible for any age group. The cost may be prohibitive. you can get the components with the traditional sorts of connections a lot cheaper. So the decision a school would have to make is this the one to go for, because the children can actually concentrate on the science and not waste their time in a lesson on messing about with screwdrivers and crocodile clips and all that other stuff.
Dave, what did you think of it?
I think I like the simplicity of it. I think I pick up what we're saying here about focusing on the science. I think that's the key to it, having spent many hours doing electricity with classes.
Does it bring
trying
back
to find
memories?
trying to find crocodile clips and you know, batteries that work and bulbs that work. One thing I would say is, are we able to buy additional components?
Yes. And you can buy any individual component to either add to it or to replace things, which you can't do for a lot of other kits. So I think that really works as well.
But what about the improvements that our teacher thought could be made?
I think she has a point in terms of the connections do sometimes come loose, but it's very easy to squeeze these bits back down again.
Well, thank you all. Time now to move on to Julia's second choice of resource, and this is a theatrical visiting workshop called Bright Sparks from Crewe. Tell us a bit more about this one.
You get an hour and a quarter of a workshop that basically goes through the entire curriculum, but then also way beyond it. So in the example of the Bright Sparks electricity one, the drama leader takes you along the path of looking at how electrons flow in a circuit. So it's a really fun, engaging, high pupil participation type activity with excellence and enjoyment right in the heart of the learning.
So it really is enforcing learning. They're not just having a fun time.
No, absolutely not. It could be used as an introductory session, but they also look at, for example, the history of electricity, and they bring a sort of a humour and a value to it that I think are quite unique to this group.
Thank you very much. Well, let's go over to another bright spark, Matthew Tosh, when he caught up with Deputy Head Teacher Andrew Rennick at Winns Primary School in Walthamstow to see what he and his Year 6 class made of the workshop.
Well, I'm here at the school and I'm about to have a chat with Andy Rennick to see how one of the Year 6 classes here got on with the Bright Sparks workshop.
We are going to make electricity. We know electricity is the flow of electrons from atom to atom to...
Andy, can you tell me how you've been using the Bright Sparks workshop?
Well, they've been coming in to work with our 3 Year 6 classes, working on electricity, and it's a part of helping the children revise and go over work they've done previously in preparing them for their Year 6 SATs. It started with a sort of history of where electricity came from, how it was first discovered. And at one stage of the workshop they became electrons and they were role-playing being the electrons and moving around. And it was a use of electricity within the home and how electricity gets from power stations through to use in the home.
So how's it gone down with the children?
They've absolutely loved it. It's been really exciting for them. It's a very sort of hands-on and interactive approach that they have, and something very different to what we would normally do in the classroom. The children are able to come out and really take part in the workshop and role play and things that you can do in the classroom but on a much grander scale.
It sounds like a lot of fun, but some people would argue that if children are having fun, perhaps they're not learning as well.
I think it's a very fine line, isn't it? That, you don't want the fun element to sort of overrule the learning of the children, but I think it's something that the workshop did very, very well.
How does this relate to what you're doing in the classroom?
And one of the units that they really go over is electricity. So the children have been doing a little bit of recap work, and the workshop goes over the same sort of ground with them, but in a different way, but also extends their learning. It sort of goes into things beyond Key Stage 2, but in a way that the children can really access.
Right, I want you to circle around this atom, circling around in a circling motion. Electrons are attracted to the nucleus of atoms.
So, in a nutshell, your overall impressions?
I think it's a very worthwhile experience. The children and the staff get a lot out of it. The children find it very exciting and very interesting and learn lots, and the staff find it really complements what they're doing in the classroom. So good all round.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Well, it's time to go back to the studio to see if the atmosphere really is electric.
Well, Julia, Bright Sparks by Crewe, that covers really the southeast of England. What if you don't live near them?
Well, there are drama groups that work all over the country, and I think they're not hard to find. Ask your local advisors or consultants in the borough, or you could go to one of the science learning centres that exist all around the country and ask for advice there. But generally, word of mouth from teachers who have actually seen things within their own schools is the best way to find out what works.
Dave, what did you make of it?
Oh, excellent. I have to say, this is the sort of thing that switched me on, pardon the pun, as a teacher in the classroom. Getting children into the hall and bringing a group in like this, working with them and looking at this very kinesthetic approach to learning. It's excellent, really good and inexpensive if you compare it to taking children out on the trip, bringing the group in to work with them. Very good.
What do you think, Keith?
That is, as you say, it is excellent. That is the way to get the children involved, to get them to remember what you're trying to get them to learn. And you could see the children were so enthused. I think they've got a problem, Crew, because I've looked at their website and I think their website is so unexciting to get across an idea of the sort of stuff that they're doing. They need to do something about that website, because that is another place that people nowadays go searching for the resources that they want for their schools.
Yeah, but I think some of the quotes on the website and also in the leaflet that's easy to get hold of do actually tell you the quality of the resource. And again, I'll come back to word of mouth every time.
Well, great recommendation there. Now let's move on to Julia's third choice of resource, and this is a website. It's called learningsircuits.co.uk. Julia, tell us about this resource.
Teachers are frequently looking for a whiteboard resource or a resource that pupils can use in the ICT suite. This is actually aimed at Year 4 and Year 6 pupils, but we've actually used it in class again with Year 2s. It's fairly comprehensive and it goes through looking at insulators and conductors and all the different aspects of circuits. It doesn't do absolutely everything, but I think as a free resource, I think it's fantastic. And one of the parts that I know that we used and really enjoyed working at with the younger pupils was the section on changing circuits, because I think the connections are shown really, really well. When you go into adding different numbers of cells, it's relatively easy to manipulate, and you can immediately see the change in the brightness of the bulbs. At the end of the section, you get a game. It's a very simple game, but it still illustrates the point really nicely. But for Year 2s, this is pitched at the right level for group discussion about having a scenario around why you would want to change a circuit, because you've got to have a purpose for doing something, and this brings in the purpose as well.
OK, well, let's see what the panel think. Keith.
It's a good example of a web-based resource which actually supports the other things we've been looking at. I did think some of the pages had quite a lot of reading on it, even though it is geared up for older children.
Yes.
So some children of lower ability would need an adult with them. But as a whole class resource, which the teacher is using with an interactive whiteboard, very, very good, I felt.
A free resource is very useful, and there are other ICT-based applications like this on the market, but as I say, the free element's useful. The one thing I would say, I'd like to have seen a drag and drop ability to it to actually get the children to think about which way round the cells need to go in the circuit. And also, I think picking up on the point you're making there, Keith, is that quite a lot of text and maybe some sound support.
Actually, a lot of the activities are self-explanatory and you can move through them relatively easily without having to read what the character's saying every single time. And as a teacher, you'd take control over how and when your pupils would use it, for depending on their abilities. So I still think it's
worth a look.
Yeah, definitely worth a look to support what's happening.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. But just to recap, the 3 resources that we've looked at are the Understanding Electricity class set from Commotion Group Limited, Bright Sparks Drama Workshop from Crew, and learningsircuits.co.uk from generation.com. For more information on all of our resources that we featured today, go to our website. It's teachers.tv/resource review, or email us resourcereview@teachers.tv. A very big thank you to our panel today, to Julia, to Keith and to Dave. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.